Have you ever heard about a goddess who could burn her enemies just by breathing? Imagine a golden cobra, eyes glowing like tiny suns, slithering through endless sands to protect her people. That's Wadjet, the fierce serpent goddess of ancient Egypt. But long before she became a crown on the pharaoh's head, she was just a local spirit of the Nile Delta. Her world was full of green reeds, cool rivers, and whispering winds. Every sunrise brought new songs of life. Every sunset reminded them that darkness was always hungry. Back then, people feared the night because it was the kingdom of chaos. And deep inside that darkness lived Apep, the massive serpent of pure evil who wanted to swallow the sun forever. Wadjet began as a small protector. She guarded simple fishing villages and farmers who grew papyrus and barley. They painted little cobra symbols on their doors, hoping she would keep crocodiles away. But one night, something happened that changed everything. The sky cracked with a strange, sickly green lightning. From the underworld, Apep rose higher than ever before, his scales black as coal, eyes like bleeding wounds. He tried to drag the sunboat of Ra down into the abyss. As Ra struggled, Wadjet felt a burning inside her, like fire trying to escape her own heart. She shot out from the reeds and grew, longer, brighter, stronger, until she wrapped herself around Ra's golden ship. With one terrifying hiss, she spit flames so bright that even Apep recoiled. Ra looked down at Wadjet and whispered, "You have the fire of a queen." From that night on, people didn't just call on Wadjet to keep crocodiles away. They prayed to her to save the entire land from darkness. Was this really a coincidence? Or was Wadjet always meant for something greater? Little by little, Wadjet transformed. Artists began painting her not just as a cobra, but as a woman with emerald skin, a golden crown, and eyes that seemed to know every secret. Merchants traveling from Memphis to Thebes told stories of seeing her slither through markets, blessing children by brushing her tail against their heads. Mothers started whispering her name over their babies' cribs at night.
"Wadjet, watch over him."
One mother said, kissing her son's forehead, "Always." Wadjet's voice seemed to echo softly through the breeze, though no one could ever prove it. Soon, even the mighty pharaohs took notice. They began wearing the uraeus, the royal cobra, on their crowns, believing Wadjet herself sat there, ready to strike down any enemy with burning breath. It was the ultimate honor. And Wadjet, she found that each act of devotion made her even stronger, but little did she know, this power would soon demand a terrible price. Because deep below, Apep wasn't dead. He was waiting, plotting, twisting in his endless coils of hate. What would you do if you knew a monster was waiting in the dark just for you? In the next part, I'll tell you how Wadjet faced a nightmare that almost destroyed the sun itself, and how she had to decide what she was truly willing to sacrifice to keep the light alive. Night fell like a heavy curtain over Egypt. The stars blinked nervously as if they knew something terrible was coming. And they were right. One moonless night, as priests chanted in temples and families lit oil lamps hoping to keep the darkness away, the ground started to shake. The Nile itself seemed to gasp. From the deepest pit of Duat, the underworld Apep burst out, larger and darker than ever before. His body was endless, wrapping around the horizon. His roar was like the cracking of every tree in the world, snapping at once. People ran from their homes. Even mighty lions hid their faces. Ra's sunboat appeared on the edge of the sky, struggling to rise. But this time, Apep was ready. He lunged up, fangs dripping venom, and sank his teeth into the sun's edge. The light began to bleed away. Wadjet's desperate stand far below, Wadjet felt it like knives slicing her own flesh. She didn't think, she simply moved, transforming into a massive cobra, scales blazing turquoise and gold. She raced up the sky to wrap around Ra's ship. But Apep laughed, a sound like dying animals.
You're too late, little snake. This world will be mine.
Wadjet didn't reply. Instead, she opened her jaws and let out a stream of white-hot fire that burned through the shadows, searing one of Apep's coils. The monster shrieked and recoiled, loosening his grip on the sun. Ra tried to steer away, shouting down to her,
Hold him back, Wadjet, just a little longer.
"I will, or die trying," she hissed, though fear clawed at her heart. The twist power has a cost, but something was wrong. Every time she breathed fire, it didn't just burn Apep, it burned her too. Her divine essence, the very thing that made her a goddess, was draining away. Apep seemed to sense it. He coiled tighter around the sun, whispering with a voice like cracking ice.
Give up, Wadjet. You're just a protector of fields and rivers. This is beyond you.
"Is it?" she growled, even though inside she wondered, what if he was right? Imagine if your whole existence was meant to protect others, even if it destroyed you, could you still stand tall? In that moment of doubt, Apep struck again this time, driving his darkness straight into Wadjet's heart. She screamed as shadows wrapped around her, squeezing her light, trying to snuff her out forever. But then, in the far distance, she heard voices. A farmer in the delta praying for his children, a little girl clutching a clay cobra statue, whispering,
Wadjet, please protect my mother.
Something inside Wadjet exploded, not with fire this time, but with love. She realized her power didn't just come from herself or from Ra. It came from every single mortal who believed in her. She roared so loudly that even pyramids cracked. Her body blazed with a new kind of fire, golden, gentle, unstoppable. With a final surge, she ripped Apep away from the sun and hurled him back into Duat, sealing the gate with a slam of her tail.
This isn't over, Wadjet.
"I know," she whispered. "I'll be waiting." When dawn finally broke, people emerged from their homes and saw the sun shining clear in the sky. They danced and wept with relief. They didn't know how close they'd come to losing everything. Priests carved new symbols of Wadjet on temple walls, this time not just as a cobra, but as a warrior with a crown of flames. Her story spread from city to city. Even the powerful Queen Hatshepsut later had Wadjet's image carved on her obelisks, trusting in her protection. Was this really just a myth? Or maybe it was a warning that light survives only because someone dares to fight for it, again and again. I'd like to read your comments about this. What would you have done in Wadjet's place? But even as Wadjet soaked in the prayers and offerings, she knew the fight was far from over. Because in the deep, endless dark, Apep was already healing and planning his return. Years passed. The Nile rose and fell, empires bloomed and faded, but Wadjet never rested. Each night, she waited by the sunboat, eyes sharp, muscles coiled. Sometimes Apep tried small attacks, sending shadowy hands to grab the light. Wadjet burned them away with barely a thought. But one night, something changed. Apep returned, stronger and more twisted than ever. His scales were armored with stolen souls, his breath so cold it turned the stars dark. He struck so fast, even Wadjet barely blocked him in time. The two serpents twisted through the sky, smashing against invisible walls of magic. Each bite from Apep drained Wadjet's life force. Each blast of her fire left her a little dimmer. Ra called down from his ship.
Hold on, Wadjet. Remember who you are.
She did remember. She remembered being just a small goddess of reeds. She remembered the prayers of farmers, the laughter of children, the hopes of queens. She remembered that without her, all of them would be swallowed by darkness. With a final mighty effort, Wadjet surged forward, sinking her fangs into Apep's heart. Light burst from inside him, bright enough to blind even the gods. Apep let out one last roar and shattered into 1,000,000 smoking pieces, which rained down into Duat and disappeared. Then silence. When Wadjet finally uncoiled, she was smaller. Her colors were softer. The fight had taken much from her, but as she looked around, she saw the sun rise clean and strong, painting the land gold. Villagers woke up. Children ran through the streets. Priests sang songs of praise. Somewhere in the crowd, a little girl lifted a clay cobra and whispered,
Thank you.
and Wadjet smiled. Imagine if every person truly understood how their faith makes God stronger, how different our stories would be. After that final battle, the pharaohs decided Wadjet would never be forgotten. They placed her forever on their crowns as the uraeus, that tiny upright cobra you still see on ancient statues. It was more than jewelry. It was a promise that every ruler of Egypt carried Wadjet's fierce spirit with them. Even Cleopatra, centuries later, wore Wadjet proudly on her brow, believing it would give her power to face mighty Rome. That's how deep this goddess's legacy ran. But for Wadjet, the greatest victory wasn't the crown or the temples. It was knowing that people felt safe to love, to grow crops, to sing under the sun, because she had dared to stand against chaos. So, what does this old tale of a serpent goddess really mean for us now? Think of it like this. There will always be darkness trying to eat the light, fear, cruelty, doubt. But true power isn't about being the biggest or brightest. It's about protecting what matters, even when it hurts, even when it costs you something. Wadjet didn't wait for someone else to save the sun. She became the fire herself. Maybe that's exactly what we're all supposed to do, to guard the light in our own lives, our families, our dreams, our small hopes with all the fierce love we can muster. So, tell me honestly, was this really just a coincidence? Or are we all meant to be a little like Wadjet?